What are indexes in C#? Indexes allow instances of a class or structure to be indexed just like arrays. They provide a way to access the internal data of a class or structure using the array access operators. They can also be used with interfaces. Okay, let's start with a basic example. I'm going to create a class first without using an indexer, and then we're going to use the same class with an indexer and see what the difference is. So let's start right away. Okay, let me create my classes. The first class is going to be our book class. We're going to have a title, and we're going to have an author, and now let's create our book collection class, which is going to be our main class. So let's go ahead, class book collection, and now we're going to have a private list of books, and we're going to create several methods which allow us to add a book, get a book using the index of the list, and also remove a book from our collection. So let's start with that. This is going to be our method to add a book to the collection. Let's go public void add book, and we're going to have book and books add book. Okay, the next method is going to be the one to retrieve a book using a specific index. So retrieve using a specific index. So it's going to be public book get book, and let's make this index, and we need to check if the index is actually valid. So if it's smaller than 0, or if it is outside of the range. So it's going to be books count. We're going to throw an exception, otherwise we're going to return the book. So let's return the book, and here we're going to throw new argument out of range exception, and we're going to go name of index, and then we're going to say index is out of range, for example, and we're going to add another method to remove a book from the collection, and public void remove book, and we're going to copy this, and we're going to have books remove at index, and we can also have a method to retrieve the count of our collection. So get the number of books, and it is going to be public int count, okay, and I think we are done with our classes. We have the book class and the book collection class, so let's see how we can use it in our main method. Book collection, my books equals new book collection. We're going to add a book to the collection. So let's make it title equals, not this one, the Lord of the Rings, and we need the author, which is going to be JRR, and we added our book. Now let's see how we can retrieve the book from the collection using the index. So let's go book equals my books get book, and we are using the 0 index. And now let's write it to the console. Let's run the program, see if it works, and we got the Lord of the Rings. That means that our method works. And we can also use the remove book method and so on. But now let's see how we can use the same book collection class, but this time we're going to use indexers and see what the difference is. So I'm going to delete some of the code here. I'm going to leave the add book method, and then we're going to create our indexer, which will allow us to get and set a book using an index. So let's do that now. Okay, I'm going to go public book, and I'm going to explain the syntax shortly, but for now let's just create it. And we're going to have a get and set as well. So we're going to return books index, and we're going to have set books index equals value, which is going to help us set a book index. And now let's use the method inside our main class. So we're going to leave the my books declaration, and we are going to add the first book. And now let's actually use the get and set to see how that works. So I'm going to have book equals my books 0, and now this should give us the title, the next line, the console right line, book title. So let's run the code and see if it works. And you can see that it works. We get the Lord of the Rings. And now let's see if we can use the indexer to actually change the book. So let's go my books 0. We're going to change that to new book title. It's going to be in 1984, and the author, okay, where did it go? Author equals George Orwell, and we are going to again retrieve the book using the index. So let's see if this now works. Okay, I'm running the code, and we see that the title printed now is 1984. So we are basically using an indexer to change the first item in our collection, and then we're using an indexer to retrieve that item, and then we print the title of the book to the console. Okay, in C#, this keyword actually refers to the current instance of the class, and we use it when we declare our indexes, and we use the two accessors, the get and the set. And as always, the get accessor defines how to retrieve a value, and the set one how to set our value using the index. And just like in the first example, where we had to check if the index is actually within the bounds of our collection, we need to do the same here as well. Let me show you why. We have created our book collection when we have added only one book. So what is going to happen if I try to access my books 1? And obviously, since the books list contains only one item, this is going to give us an exception. So let's see if that is the case. And we can see that we got the system argument out of range exception. So how do we handle that? Well, in the same way we did when we used methods instead of indexers. So let's modify our indexer declaration. Okay, so we're going to check again if the index is within the bounds of our collection. Okay, so I'm going to go get, and we're going to check again if index is smaller than 0 or index is greater or equal to book count. We're going to throw our arguments out of range exception. So throw new argument out of range exception, and we're going to go again. Name of index, and our message is going to be index is out of range, and we're going to do the same with our set. So let me just copy this, and now we should see this exception thrown. So let's run it, and we see the system argument out of range exception, index is out of range. And you can obviously modify the message any way you want it, but this is the proper way to check if the index is within the bounds of our collection, or you can actually handle it in a different way if that makes sense in your application. Okay, using indexers, we can also do data validation, much like when we use methods. There are advantages and disadvantages. We're going to talk about them a bit later. For now, let's just show a quick example and how we can do that. So I'm going to delete these two classes. I'm going to create a new class, which is going to be my temperature collection class. So let's start with that. Class temperature collection. And again, we're going to have a list, private list, which is going to be temperatures, and we're going to create our list inside the constructor, and we're going to add some values. Let's make this 20, 22, 25, 18, 21, minus 5, minus 5, 10, and so on. I think this is good enough for now. And now we're going to create our indexer, but this time we're going to try to validate the set accessor to make sure that we don't allow temperatures which are not valid. And for the purpose of this example, we're going to assume that temperatures which are lower than 80 degrees and higher than 60 degrees are not valid. So let's do that now. So we're going to again go public int this, int index, and now okay, we're going to go get, return, and now let's create a set. Again, we're going to check if the index is actually within the bounds of our collection, but we're also going to check if the value is greater than 60 or smaller than minus 80. So let's do that first. Smaller than minus 80 or value is greater than 60. We're going to throw new arguments out of range exception. Again, we're going to use the name of index, and our message is going to be temperature cannot be lower than minus 80 degrees Celsius or higher than, what was it, 60 degrees Celsius. Okay, and again we're going to check if the index is within the bounds of our collection, is smaller than 0, or index is greater than, what was it, temperatures count. And we're going to throw the same exception with different message. Index is out of range. And finally we're going to set the index equals value, and this is how we check if our data is valid, and we can actually now use it inside the main method. So let me delete all these and see how we can do that. And I can create my collection first. Equals new collection. We're going to first make sure that we can use the set index accessor, and we just want to make sure that it works. Set, so we're going to go temperature collection 0, it is 20, now we're going to set it to 25, and just to make sure that it works. And then we're going to try to set it to, let's say, 100 and see if we're going to get this exception. So let's print it to the console first. Console write line. Okay, so let's run it, and we get 25, which shows us that our indexer actually works. So let's try to set it to, let's say, 250. And okay, let me move this down. We can see that we got system argument out of range exception, temperature cannot be lower than minus 80 or higher than 60, and parameter index. So this is how you can use data validation using indexers, and again, there are advantages and disadvantages of using indexers with data validation as opposed to using methods, so we're going to discuss them next. And now these are the guidelines for when to use indexers and when to use methods. You can pause the screen and read them, and when it comes to data validation, using indexers for data validation has its advantages. It is convenient, and the indexes allows data to be accessed and modified using a rel-like syntax. And for classes designed to mimic collections, arrays, or lists, the indexes provide a very familiar interface for users, which is aligned with how the built-in collections are manipulated. And when it comes to using methods for data validation, they have also certain advantages. The methods can be named very clearly, which indicates what a method does, such as the ones that we saw in the example: add book, remove book, get book, and so on. And when you have complex validation logics, the methods can be better, since you can incorporate the complex validation logic with the multiple parameters and so on. And also the methods are more versatile. They can perform operations that don't fit all that well into the get and set model of the indexers. And we can also define indexers in interfaces, so let's do that next. Just a quick example. I'm going to have an interface which is called iStorage, and we're going to define our indexer. Define indexer in the interface. Let's do that. And now we can create a class which implements the interface. So let's call that class storage, and it implements iStorage, and we're going to have a private list, items, and we can implement the indexer implementation. So public t this int index and our get and set items index and our set, and we can of course create our add method and t item, and we're going to go items add. Okay, and now we can actually go ahead and use our storage class as we would normally do, but this is just to demonstrate that we can define our indexers in the interface. And that is actually all from me for today. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.